Councilman Henry,
Here.
Mayor Shelton,
Here.
Vice Mayor Epps,
Here.
Councilman Womack, 4 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite those that wish to do so to stand for the invocation given tonight by David Hill, President of Tennessee Bible College, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag.
Would you bow with me, please? Gracious God, eternal Father, we thank you for the beautiful day that you've blessed us to see and to live. We're thankful for this great nation that is ours, for the liberty that's afforded to us, for the price that's been paid for that liberty, and Father, for the great blessings that are ours in this community. We ask your blessings to be upon this council, be upon these as they would lead, as they make decisions that affect all. We pray for wisdom in their part. We pray that they would make judgments that would be fair, be mindful to all. And we pray, Father, that all who would lead and all who would rule, including those who rule nationally, would do so in such a way that the righteous could live quiet and peaceful lives with all godliness and honesty in this earth. Dear Father, we thank you for loving us. We pray for your wisdom. We ask that you help us along life's way. And we're thankful for the sacrifice of love in Jesus Christ our Lord. In him we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
David, this time, item 3, consider approval of agenda as presented. Are there any changes?
Mayor, there's no changes to the agenda.
Very good. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Item 4, we have an appointment to the Putnam County Library Board, and I would like to make the motion that Mr. Daniel Rader IV be appointed to the Putnam County Library Board of Trustees for a 3-year term. Are there any other, is there a second?
Second.
Second, are there any other nominations? Seeing none, all vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you. At this time, I want to recognize some folks that are with us tonight. We're blessed to find a old historic Coke sign in our town over on West Broad Street. It happened to be on my family's property that my dad had purchased many, many years ago. The sign had probably been covered up for more than 50 years, and we tonight are honored to have the folks with us that made that possible. And they're from Coca-Cola Bottling Company Consolidated in Charlotte, North Carolina. Just want to introduce the folks and then ask some to speak. So we have Mr. Lauren Steele, Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs. We have Bob Bedell, Senior Director of Corporate Affairs. Allison Patient, Senior Director of Corporate Affairs. Spencer Webster, Market Unit Vice President. Kendall Cook, Operations Specialist, Corporate Affairs. We have Gray Brewington, Director of Retail Sales, Heidi Kimball, Area Sales Manager, and Tim Smith, District Sales Manager. And also Emily Nichols, our Communications Specialist with Corporate Affairs, and I think her actual title is Ghost Sign Director, which that is what that is. So, Mr. Steele, would you like to speak for a few minutes?
Mayor, members of City Council, and citizens of Cookeville, thank you so much for your wonderful hospitality. We were so delighted that you uncovered the Coca-Cola ghost sign. We call these ghost signs because starting in, more than 100 years ago, about 1914, Coca-Cola started painting wall murals on the sides of buildings throughout, largely in the rural South. At one point, there were about 16,000 Coca-Cola wall murals across the country. Much like, sadly, a lot of the small towns where these signs were located, they started to fade. And fortunately, Cookeville has not faded. What a beautiful, wonderful town Cookeville is. But we, as Coca-Cola Consolidated, we are the new Coca-Cola bottler here in Cookeville. And we know Coke has a long history here. I had the pleasure to be with Hill Carlin today and his family, and it's a wonderful, long history. But we at Coca-Cola Consolidated, headquartered just down the road in Charlotte, became the Coke bottler here a little over a year ago. We found this ghost sign, and we have tried to go in, and we've done about 35 of these now. And part of our effort to help revitalize the rural South and small towns across our region where we're the co-filer. It is a beautiful sign. We are going to have a party tomorrow to unveil the sign. It's at 11 o'clock. There's going to be some great food from barbecue. We're going to have lots of good, cold, delicious Cookeville Coca-Cola products. The Capshaw Elementary School Chorus is going to be on hand, and we invite everybody to come out. We also, and it's the last time this will be done this year in the United States, we will have the Share a Coke kiosk. You may have seen over the summer where we have put names on Coke bottles and Coke cans across the country. Well, tomorrow, if you come to our party down on West Broad Street, you can get your name and your family's name on a bottle, or on a can, excuse me. So the Share a Coke kiosk will be here. But it is a real honor for us to be in your beautiful town, and thank you so much for your hospitality.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Very good. Item 5 under old business, consider approval of minutes of council meeting held on August 20th, 2015. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Item 6 is the consent agenda. 6A set a date 10/1/15 for a public hearing on ordinance O-150922, rezoning a portion of 1061 Salem Church Road consisting of 3.41 acres from RS-15 single-family residential to CR regional commercial. Item B set a date 10/1/15 for a public hearing on ordinance O-150923, rezoning the remainder of Highlands Business Park properties from RS-20 single-family residential to CI commercial industrial mixed use. And item C, consider awarding bid for transformers and floodlights from the electric department. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Under new business, item A, hold a public hearing and consider on first reading ordinance O-150821, amendments to the zoning code by revising certain provisions of section 205 and 219 relative to off-street parking requirements and high-density residential development in the CBD Central Business District. Mr. Mills.
Mayor and council members, in our central business district, townhouses and condominiums are currently uses permitted on review and approval by the planning commission subject to specific conditions. Multifamily residential uses, which are apartments in the central business, are uses permitted on appeal to the Board of Zoning Appeals and are subject to the requirements of the RM14 multifamily residential district. Under the current provisions of the central business district, a minimum of 3,000 square feet of land area is required per multifamily dwelling unit. The maximum density for condominiums or townhouses is 21 units per acre, which is approximately 2,074 square feet per dwelling unit. For all three housing types, a minimum of 1.25 off-street parking spaces is required per bedroom for the first 50 dwelling units and 2 spaces per dwelling unit for every dwelling unit exceeding 50. We received a request from Jerry Gall and Paul Gall to amend the zoning code to increase the density in the central business district for these type uses, condominiums, townhomes, and apartments, and to reduce the parking requirement. They specifically requested that the density be based solely on the number of off-street parking requirements that could be provided, and that the minimum parking requirement be reduced to 1.1 spaces per bedroom. In reviewing this, the Planning Department and the Planning Commission reviewed our 2030 plan, and there are at least 2 policies in our plan which are relative to housing in the downtown area. Under one of the objectives for providing a variety of housing types and densities, Policy 4 states that we should encourage and concentrate higher density housing development in the central city area along major traffic corridors with access to retail business, pedestrian amenities, and cultural activities. And then Policy 13 in our 2030 plan provides that we should encourage the development of housing in and near the downtown area. As you know, higher density residential development is commonly located in the downtown areas of most mid-sized and especially in larger cities. We looked at the zoning provisions from a number of cities in Tennessee, the planning department did, similar in size to Cookeville, regarding the regulation of high density residential developments in central business districts. In general, the larger the city, the higher the density allowed in the downtown areas. We also reviewed the off-street parking requirements of several cities in the state similar to the size of Cookeville, and Cookeville's off-street parking requirements for multifamily and similar uses were higher than any other cities that we compared with. Now, the ordinance before you, which was prepared by the planning department, would amend the provisions of the central business district to allow apartments, multifamily residential, efficiency apartments, townhouses, and condominiums as uses permitted upon the approval by the planning commission of a site plan and a subdivision plat, if applicable, and subject to several conditions. And those conditions are as follows. First, that we would have a maximum height of 5 stories or 60 feet, and that for each story over 3, or every 10 feet over a maximum of 35 feet in height, a building setback of 5 feet from all property lines would be provided. This is provisions included to help mitigate the impact of a much taller structure on the remainder of the downtown, which is primarily 2-story structures. It also would require verification from the Department of Water Quality Control that the existing water and sewer capacities in the downtown area are adequate to serve the development. In most cities, the downtown area is some of your older utilities, and we don't want to have approving a development that's going to tax our existing system, so that would have to be verified. Dwelling units would be limited to a maximum of 3 bedrooms, no more than 3 bedrooms per dwelling unit. There's a minimum size that's required for the units, with 650 for a 1-bedroom unit being the smallest you could do. Architectural design requirements of our current zoning code would apply for all these developments. And then establishes the density at a minimum of 1,500 square feet per dwelling unit, with no lot area of less than 5,000 square feet. So again, you must have a minimum of 5,000 square feet before you could convert or build multifamily, condominium, or townhome developments in the central business district. Now, when this was reviewed by the planning commission, the planning department recommended that the parking requirement be reduced to 1.1 spaces per bedroom per dwelling unit. And there was quite a bit of concern with the planning commission about reducing that. Several of the members indicated that they felt there was a shortage of available parking in the downtown and were worried that a reduction in the requirement would worsen the problem. And the planning commission unanimously approved the planning department's recommendation to increase the density, but for the off-street parking to remain unchanged at 1.25 per bedroom per dwelling unit up to the first 50 dwelling units. Now, in reviewing the parking, in which I presented this to the planning commission, these are some of the cities that we looked at. And this would be for a 30-unit, 60-bedroom development with the cities of Marshtown, Jackson, Gallatin, and so forth. And you can see that we are significantly higher on any of these other cities that we compared with. Also, when we reviewed this, we looked at what would be the different impacts on a 30-unit, 60-bedroom development on different parking requirements. Again, that would range from, at 1.25, you'd have to provide 75 per spaces, and at 2 spaces per unit, it drops down to 60. 2 spaces per unit was by far the overall average of all the other cities we looked at. But the ordinance before the council contains the amendments as recommended by the planning commission. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All right. So at this time, we'll open the public hearing portion of the meeting. Anyone that would like to speak on this matter as presented? Do we have anyone that would like to speak? Okay. Couple points of order. Step to the podium, state your name and address. Statement no more than 3 minutes, may pertain to the item. Once the timer sounds, you'll need to wrap up your comments within about 10 seconds. So step right up, sir.
Mayor Shelton and Councilman, my name is Jerry Gall, and as Mr. Mills has pointed out, I think the ordinance is recommended. The only change that was made at the Planning Commission was the changing it back from 1.1 to the 1.25 as it is currently. I would just ask that possibly you might consider reviewing that and maybe going back to the 1.1. And I really want that to stand on its own merits, as I've discussed with some of you. You know, I don't want it to be that because it's good for me. It needs to be good for the city, and I feel like it is. And as Mr. Mills has pointed out, our restrictions are more stringent than most cities across the state. I suggested the 1.1 because Murfreesboro is at 1.1, and I felt like that was a good point to work with. We have, we're going to be able to make our project work even at the 1.25, but I still feel like the 1.1 is where we need to be for future development in the downtown business district. The people, and I'm very sympathetic to the parking issues downtown. I'm part of the downtown. I was on the initial cityscape board, and I'm very much about cityscape and about downtown. I think we have a lot of opportunity to be creative about some parking spaces. We have a lot of things available to us that we're not using. We, you know, and since we've owned the lot, we've been certainly haven't minded that other people have used our lot until we get ready to develop it. We've offered it to the Hog Rally. We offered it to Wine on the West Side. We offered it to someone else, Farmers Market. I said, you're welcome to stay there as long as we're not developing it, but you may want to go on and pick another place just in case. We're, you know, there are parking lots, the city parking lots. There are regional bank parking lot. We have a city parking lot behind Seven Senses. We have a city parking lot by Deb's Design. There are places, if you attended the Wine on the West Side, anybody and everybody that wanted to be there got to be there, and they were creative in finding their parking places. So there are things we can do. I've made some suggestions. We're not going to build probably for 6 months to a year. We're willing to get with everybody and brainstorm. You know, a couple of thoughts I had was a lot of employees that work downtown, example, Crawdaddies. I don't know how many employees they have, but if they had an off-site parking where they could bus their employees in, so you don't take up 15 or 20 parking places for employees. Another thing, in Nashville and other cities, you have valet parking at places like that. So there's lots of opportunity. City may want to consider buying a parking lot. But again, I think for future development, the 1.1 is a good number. What we're going to do, we had a 3-story building, and so it spread our building out, and therefore we ended up with 66 parking spaces for 30 condominiums, and the 1.1 worked out exactly at 66 spaces. I've just recently we're building out at Downton Square. We've had 8 units that have sold that we've just completed. 7 out of the 8, I'm sorry. Out of those 7 have sold, there's 1 person per unit that's living in the 2-bedroom, 2-car garage units. They're single people. And that's what we're finding a lot of, young professionals, people that are downsizing, widows, divorcees situations. So, you know, we're going to have ample parking on our lots. We're not going to impact negatively the parking in areas around us. So, but even though we're going to go on and do a 4-story if we have to or need to, and we can meet the 1.25 criteria, but I really feel like need to do it right. The people that are doing the Wilson building, and I know I'm getting short on time here, the Wilson building, you know, going to do a nice development, good people, and they're going to be coming to you, I suspect. Now, I'm talking out of school. I'm talking for them, and I don't know that any of them are here. But if you build a convention center downtown and a hotel downtown, you're going to need parking for that. So there's going to have to be some creativity there, or some parking garages. Something's going to have to happen. They're going to be coming back, I feel like, well, and I shouldn't speak for them, but could be coming back and asking for this or something even more or less restrictive. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, that will close the public hearing portion of the meeting, and now the council will discuss the item as it has been presented.
If I may, Mayor.
Sure.
James, as I'm sure the other council members have, spent a lot of time on this since our work session on Monday. In fact, I spent most of the day visiting with various people who have interest in, on I could say, both sides, and received a lot of phone calls. And I've got 3 or 4 questions, and I'll be as brief and concise with the questions as I can, if you'll be as brief and concise with the answers as you can. So I know there are a lot of people who may have something to say, but the parking is the issue. And I know that the Planning Commission have a great deal of respect for all the members of the Planning Commission, wanted to keep it at 1.25 spaces per bedroom. But you were comfortable with 1.1, and that was your initial recommendation. Briefly, if you would, why was that your recommendation, and why were you comfortable at that level?
There's a couple of reasons. The first is that we analyzed many cities across the state to see what their parking requirement was. And we found, as I said, I didn't find a single city, and I'm not saying I looked at every city, but I looked at dozens that required the same or more parking that we do. So we're on the high end, and I'd heard that from developers over the past several years, that we require too much parking. Now, the second reason is we changed to 1.25 about 10 or 12 years ago. We used to be 1 per bedroom, but we changed to 1.25 because of the type of development that was occurring around the university. What happened then, we started getting a lot of the 4-bedroom units that were rented out individually. And we ended up in some places with a shortage of parking. So we changed the code then to ensure that we had enough parking for these high density, that basically when you do the 4-bedroom, you're actually having 4 units in one, what we traditionally thought of as a unit.
Sure.
So we're not proposing, or I did not propose to change that for the remainder of the city, especially around the university, only in the central business district.
Thank you for your indulgence. But if there's and we do have parking issues down, no doubt about it. There's a perception, and you help me, tell me if I'm wrong, because I could be, okay, and gentlemen, okay, there's a perception that if we lower this from 1.25 to 1.1, according to your recommendation, that somehow we lose parking spaces downtown. Help me, but as Mr. Collins pointed out, that space now is not public parking. What he's talking about, I parked there today at Crawdaddy's only because when I ate lunch, because he allows me to. Farmer's Market, wine on the west side. There was somebody, Jerry, selling something down there today, truck or mattresses or furniture or something. I'm sure they had to call you on that too. But that's only because they didn't call you. Okay, they were. They were. But it's not private now. The previous owner put a barbed wire fence around it. I mean, we got that message when that happened. So what I'm saying is, regardless if we keep it at 1.25 or this council decides to lower it to 1.1, we still aren't losing one single public parking place. Am I right? Am I right about that?
That's correct. This is all private property,
okay,
and
so
all the parking would be provided on the private property.
Okay, so we're not, regardless of what we decide, we're not losing a single space for cars to park in that's public right now, regardless of what the decision is, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and I would just, so that would be, let me see if I got one more question here. Do you believe that in terms of future residential developments, is it your opinion that this lower ratio of 1.1 will be of help to future residents? And we want people to come and live there. Nobody gets more excited about what's happening on the west side than I do. I've been down to, Cream City. I ate so much butter pecan this week, my cardiologist is going to jump all over me. I know he will for it. But nobody's more excited than I, but we don't, and we want people to move down there, because I think it's logical to assume that when they get down there, they're going to walk across the street to Crawdaddy's, they're going to go to Seven Seasons, they're going to go up to Foxley Bookstore, to the antique stores, all the other places that are there. And that's the trend in this country, moving that way, so we want them to go that way. Would 1.1 help future residential developments be able to make those projects more doable in your view?
Well, I mean, it could be reducing, it could serve as an incentive for people to, another incentive to come to the downtown area. That's that much land, less land area you have to dedicate to parking. It's that much less asphalt that you have for parking. They could actually go into either to the living quarters or to green space.
Yeah. So I'm correct in stating that, and this sounds like a statement, but it's a question. We're not going to lose one, regardless, we're not going to lose one single parking space if we lower the ratio. And I met today at length with folks who are involved, and I'm excited about that conference center. I want to do everything the city can to help that. And the question I wanted to ask them was, will this, if that ratio is changed, and those nine numbers, if that's changed, will this inherently harm your project? And basically, I think it's their view that their project is a higher and better use of that property. And I understand their position on that, but the only thing it said about harm to me was some of the traffic or parking from the condominiums could end up on their property. And maybe that could happen, but I didn't hear any real inherent harm, because I wanted to make sure that whatever we did didn't harm the conference center project. So we're not taking away any public space. We're not harming the conference center project, at least with the information I've been able to gather. We're making this condominium project more doable, because if it goes to 4 stories, there'll be more spaces for guests to park, and we're bringing business downtown because people are moving that way. Are all those statements true?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I had my facts right. And that 1.1 makes that development a better development because it provides more space as far as residents. And I don't think every resident there is going to have 2 vehicles, as the developer pointed out. But with four stories, you'd have additional spaces for guests that did come. So if all that's true, and it doesn't take up any public parking space, it helps the business community, it doesn't hurt the conference center, then it makes sense to me to consider lowering that ratio to your recommendation. And all due respect to all my friends on the Planning Commission, but I just want to make sure that I had my facts right, and apparently I do, at least.
I think so, yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate your opinion. I've written some notes, try to prepare this so I won't ramble. I also serve on the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission recognized the need and desire for future residential development in our downtown area. Because there are limited properties available, the increase in density would have to be attained vertically. Section 219.3A would allow up to 5 stories or 60 feet above street level. Section 205.8B of the zoning code for the off-street parking, as passed by the Planning Commission, requires 1.25 parking spaces per bedroom. The developers, as you've heard, were requesting this to be dropped to 1.1 parking places per unit. While the Planning Commission was comfortable and supportive of the higher density residential amendment to our zoning code, there were concerns about parking. The requests for these changes for the CBD were made by developers wishing to build on the corner lot across from the Depot Street and Cedar Avenue. This is approximately about an acre in property. Because this is in the middle of the west side area, which has seen a significant improvement in the past few years, the Planning Commission was highly concerned about the available parking in this area, already strained to say the least about this. Although the property to be developed is private property, people that patronize the west side have used this property as public parking, which is not fair to the property owners who pay property taxes on this property without any compensation from the people who use it or the businesses that benefit from it. This property will be developed and will be gated. The Planning Commission felt that this property should have enough self-contained parking for its residents and some guests, and not have to spill over into the inadequate public parking in this area. The Planning Commission and I, as a city councilman, do not feel the requirements of 1.25 spaces per bedroom for parking is putting that much, if any, hardship on the developers to meet this requirement. The problems that Cookeville is experiencing in the CBD is growth in the volume of people that patronize the businesses and visit Dogwood Park. This is a good problem. We are growing, and we are showing the signs of this growth. What I try to do on the council and on the planning commission is try to be objective in all my decisions as a representative of you, the people, to ensure that there is collateral improvement for all our citizens of Cookeville. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'm not nearly as well prepared as Dwight and as my previous council members have stated, but I'm going to vote for the 1.25 support with Councilman Woodford. Reasons are I guess I'm kind of simple guy with a simple mind. I mean, 1.1 sounds fine until it should hold. It sounds like it should hold all the parking. It should do just fine until it doesn't. And then when it doesn't, all of a sudden you've got a problem, and that's kind of what I worry about. We can have reassurances and all kinds of things put in place to make sure that works. But when it doesn't work, it becomes an issue. And I think that's Mr. Woodford, Councilman Woodford said that very well. Another thing too, I kind of think of it from a different kind of bent, is that on the council we've been doing a lot lately to make the city of Cookeville attractive, not just downtown, but city of Cookeville attractive. And I think that's been well documented in just seeing businesses that are showing up here and retail that's coming in. And I think what we've done is we've created an environment of Cookeville that people want to be here. And I think we can manage, since we've done this and we've worked very hard to do this. People are going to come anyway. They're going to come, and we can, even though it's going to cost more and we're not going to get the return, developers won't be able to get the return that they want with a 1.1 versus 1.25. I think we've created an environment that allows that there's the desire to be here regardless of maybe the increased costs. I think was still going to happen. So I kind of come from that area, and I'm going to go ahead and continue to vote for and stick with the 1.25. So that being said,
Can I put
You can, then I'll speak. That's
Okay.
fine.
Are you going to speak for me?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Mayor Shelton, in light of the fact that to the extent that this ratio is lowered, we will not lose one space of public parking. In light of the fact that lowering this ratio would not at all hurt the conference center project, and in light of the fact that it will help not only obviously the developer make it a better development, but it'll help the residents who live in the condominiums because they'll have extra parking spaces, particularly if it goes to 4 floors for their guests. It will help other residential developers in the central business district, and it'll bring these people who live there will shop there, spend more money there. So in my view, I think it's logical to assume that it'll be increased business on the west side of town. So in light of those things, I would offer this amendment to the item that's on the floor, motion to amend the ordinance to specify that the minimum off-street parking requirements for townhouses, condominiums, efficiency apartments, and multifamily dwellings located in the central business district zoning district shall be 1.1 parking spaces per bedroom per dwelling unit, with any fraction of a space rounded up to the next higher number. I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
And I'll second it so we can discuss it, or so I can have my comments now. We do want downtown living. I don't doubt that there's very many people that love the downtown more than I do, as evidenced by the things that the Coke sign, for instance, and others. But we have a really good problem, and that's we have a vibrant, dynamic downtown, and that needs more parking, and that is an issue. But this particular situation, if we let everything stand on its own merits, this situation really doesn't change that fact that we need more parking or that it's going to harm the parking, because, as Councilman Woodford said, this parking lot's been used for parking forever. It actually once held the Shanks Hotel, which was my aunt and uncle's hotel. It was actually the first motor hotel between Nashville and Knoxville. And now it's been a parking lot for years, and everybody's enjoyed the use of that as a parking lot. But when it's going to be developed in some shape or form, and when that goes away, it's not any developer's fault that it's going away. It's the fact that they have the option to develop their property as they see fit. And they're required, whether it's 1.25 or 1.1, to hold the proper amount of spaces on the property. So I have a little bit of a hard time understanding that if we're building 30 units, and that's 60 bedrooms, and even if you assume that everybody had 2 cars, that's 60, and under 1.1, that's 6, they're going to have 6 extra spaces 1.25, they're going to have 75. That's only 9 cars. I don't see how that's going to harm anything downtown. I mean, if you're assuming that every single person in that place has an extra guest over every night or every day, and it takes 30 more cars that day, then that is great for the businesses downtown is all I could say about it. And everybody will figure out where to park, because you're going to have to, all of us are going to have to get used to parking further away. We're spoiled that we pull up in the front door of a business and run in, and that's awesome, except for you don't think twice about going to Nashville and parking in a mall and walking 1,000 yards. And I just think that's something we're going to have to get used to. So there's a motion and a second on the floor. Y'all have all spoken. Do y'all want to speak anymore?
I'd say one more thing.
Sure.
Hey, and I'm not, this is not my Waterloo. Okay, I really, I think our guest pastor here this morning mentioned that we pray for wisdom, and I'm really, this has been one of those tough ones where if 5 years from now, the planning commission could be the ones that held the wisdom, and or 5 years from now that our mayor and Councilman Dwight Henry could be the one that held the wisdom. It could go either way, and I'm really kind of in a quandary. So and I say that because I really respect the debate points that my colleagues have made, and I don't necessarily disagree with them. I guess it's because I'm conservative, and I kind of like the way where we are now, and but I really appreciate what you guys have said, and I hope if I'm wrong, then so be it.
All right, so we have a motion. We have the motion and a second to vote on the amended motion, which is the 1.1 instead of the 1.25. So that's a motion and a second. And so that's how we're voting right now. So we're voting on that particular amendment on the motion. Okay, all vote.
2 yes, 2 no.
Okay, so the amendment fails, so it reverts back to the original motion, which was 1.25, with the density being as it was relayed. Any further discussion on that? Okay, all vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item B, consider on first reading ordinance 0150924, updating the occupational health and safety program plan for the city of Cookeville. Gail Fowler.
Mayor and council, I'll be brief. This is basically just some housekeeping on the city of Cookeville's Tennessee occupational safety and health program plan. There was an OSHA change made this year in reporting requirements. I'll just read that briefly. The safety director shall, in the eventuality that there is a fatality or an accident resulting in the hospitalization of 3 or more employees, ensure that the Commissioner of Labor and Workforce Development receives notification of the occurrence within 8 hours. That was our reporting change on the hospitalization of 3 or more. And then all work-related inpatient hospitalizations, amputations, and loss of an eye must be reported to TOSHA within 24 hours. The second change is the updating of the appendix, which is kind of your organizational chart. We made a change to the number of employees at the police station and the loss of the South Substation on Jefferson. Some of those folks went to Whitson Avenue. And then with the renovation of Public Works, all those folks are out on Spring Street now. The final change is the updated City of Cookeville elected officials, and kind of waited for just a little while to find out who our new administrative official was going to be, so that reflects Mike Davidson as our city manager. That's it in a nutshell. I would respectfully request your approval, but try to be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Do we have a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
7C, consider approval of amendment to contract for CEI services with Wiser Consultants for the Bennett Road Extension Project. Melinda Kiefer.
Evening, Mayor and Council. We have before you amendment number 6 to the Wiser Consultants contract. We originally signed contract services for engineering with Wiser in July of 2012. So here we are, almost ready to bid Bennett Road. We're way down the road. As part of that, we're required to provide CEI services, construction, engineering, and inspection. Before you, you have a proposal from Wiser for both sections, Phase 1, Phase 2. That includes material testing, project management, survey services, construction administration, etc. The total amount for both sections of the Bennett Road extension is $830,822.86, and I request your approval.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll vote.
4 yes votes, motion
Thank you.
carries.
7D, consider declaring surplus plus electrical facilities at Tennessee Technological University. Tony Peak.
All right. Mayor and council, this is the map that I shared with you at the work session on Monday, and I know we had considerable discussion about that. This map indicates the electrical facilities shown in purple on and around the Tennessee Tech campus. And as you're aware, Tennessee Tech is desiring to purchase those facilities. The facilities are currently owned and maintained by the City Electric Department, City of Cookeville. And TTU pays a monthly investment charge on those facilities of $14,000 a month. The next item on the agenda, we're going to talk about a sale agreement and an operations and maintenance agreement. But before we go that far, we need to have this item to ask you folks to declare those facilities as surplus. And I'll try to answer any questions you might have, but I would respectfully request that you declare those facilities surplus at this time.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All vote.
Yes votes, motion carries.
7E, consider authorizing the city manager to execute a sale agreement and operations and maintenance agreement with Tennessee Tech University relative to the surplus electrical facilities. Mr. Peak.
Having problems again, Mayor. In your package, you should have a facility sale agreement that Mr. Dan Rader worked at, and also an operation and maintenance agreement that I drafted and had Mr. Rader's approval of that agreement. Again, Tennessee Tech is desiring to purchase the electric facilities that you just declared surplus. One of the things in the sale agreement is that the items sold by the city to Tennessee Tech pursuant to this agreement are sold as is, where is, and there are no warranties expressed or implied. And the purchase would remove the existing monthly investment charge of $14,000. The operation and maintenance agreement was requested by Tennessee Tech. Even though they purchased those facilities from the city, they would like for the City Electric Department to consider performing operations and maintenance for them. I don't see that as any kind of a problem. And again, the operations and maintenance effort performed by the electric department will be compensated by Tennessee Tech at the electric department's cost plus applicable overheads. So we'll remain whole for the work we do for them. And the operations and maintenance agreement initial term is for 3 years, automatically renewable from year to year after that, an evergreen provision. And either of us, before either of those terms, can give a 90-day notice, and we could get out of this agreement. So with that, I would recommend your approval of this item.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
Tony, my understanding, I think we asked this in the work session, they'll continue to buy electricity from the City of Cookeville.
They will, yes.
Okay. Just very curious, I know the selling price was $750,000 if memory serves.
739,000.
829.
Okay. So just a matter of curiosity, how was that value determined? I mean, it's not something you sell every day. How do you come up with a value on that?
Over the years, the equipment that we've installed goes into the electric plant,
and that's depreciated over the years, so that's a depreciated plant value.
Okay, okay.
Any other comments? All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Item F, consider awarding bid for labor and materials for the South Cookeville Substation Transformer Addition. Mr. Peak.
Mayor and council, this is for the labor and materials for the South Cookeville substation that we've been talking about the last 6 to 9 months. We had 3 bidders, seal bids. Service Electric was a low bidder, meeting our specifications, $967,870. This is part of the $2.6 million project that we are budgeted for. It came under what we thought it would, in the neighborhood of $100,000, so I'd highly recommend your approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Item G, consider authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Verifone Incorporated to provide a gateway for credit card processing for all ticket sales at CPAC Leisure Services Department. Rick Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Our ticketing software at the Cookeville Performing Arts Center requires a credit card processing gateway for us to be able to accept credit cards. And our current gateway, which is PC Charge, will no longer be supported as of October the 1st of 2015. And so we've looked around and found that Verifone is the sole provider of gateways that integrate with our ticketing software. And this is a hosted service for our software to be able to communicate with their servers. There are fees based with that, a monthly fee, and the fees are based on the number of credit card transactions that occur each month. We've looked back over the past few years, and we average right around 20,000 20,000 ticket sales per year. About 60% of those are in credit card sales. So that breaks down to about 1,000 per month. So we're recommending that we purchase a bundle of 1,000 per month, which is $35 per month, with overages of just under 5 cents per transaction. But we do have the flexibility to change that month per month based on the number of anticipated sales that we have. There are busier times of year and slower times of year, and so we can adjust that per month. But this is something that we need to do to be able to continue accepting credit cards for ticket sales at Cookeville Performing Arts Center, and I would recommend your approval.
Thank you. I make a motion that we approve the contract providing that the city does not waive any rights, privileges, and immunities conferred upon it by the Governmental Liability Act or any other Tennessee statute or law. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
Thank you.
Item H, consider approval to purchase personal protective equipment. Chief Duquay.
Mayor and council, back in October, the council awarded a bid to NAFCO for 11 sets of turnout gear for $19,763.04. In our specs, I specified in there that the price would be good for a year, trying to avoid the April increase in that most manufacturers increase their price of their turnout gear in April. So I'm asking for permission to buy another 11 sets of gear off that same bid.
Very good. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion?
Is this something you're going to be doing yearly, like
Yes, sir.
11 or 12
Yes,
pieces?
sir. Buy 11 sets a year, and our goal is that in that 5th year, then everybody will have 2 sets of gear.
Good.
They'll have a set that's 5 years old and a new set. So if they get their gear wet, at 212 degrees, the water turns to steam and it will burn them.
Yeah.
And if they're in a meth fire or get it contaminated, that they'll have another set to put on.
Okay.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All vote. Chief,
yes
real
votes.
quick, the
Motion.
antique fire truck,
Yes, sir.
Where are we at on that?
Tomorrow, I'm going to Union City with the jug, and hopefully in a few days, he'll have that fixed, and we'll get it back here and hopefully get it running.
Get it operational. Awesome. Thank you.
Love to see that in the Christmas parade, Chief.
I would too. Thank you.
We're talking about Cookeville's first fire truck that we were refurbished.
1924. All right, item I, consider awarding bid for Tennessee Tech University Regulator Station Project. Jeff Mills.
Mayor and City Council, the gas department has advertised for bids for the construction and installation of infrastructure to provide a regulator station in the area of 12th Street and Stadium Drive. The station will provide an enhanced gas pressure in the downtown distribution portion of our system while providing additional growth stability for TTU power plant and the CRMC facilities. The additional regulator station will allow more constant control over pressure in the core of our distribution center. Here's an overhead of the scope of the work and the general vicinity of where it's going to be. The star indicates where the regulator station itself will be. And I recommend that the sole bidder of James M. Bush Construction at $168,612.50 be awarded to those.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any discussion? All vote.
4 yes votes, motion carries.
All right, at this time, it brings us to the citizens portion of the meeting. If you have anything you'd like to address the council about, we can you'll step to the lectern. Couple of points of order. State your name and address. A statement of no more than 3 minutes may be made on items of general relevance. Once the timer sounds, you'll need to wrap up your comments within 10 seconds. Comments should be directed to the entire council and not individual members. And engaging any verbal attacks or comments intended to insult or otherwise would be termination of time privileges and expulsion from the council chambers. And you're welcome to start.
Mayor and Councilman, my name is Cindy Schumann. I live at 2041 Grademere. I'm from the Grademere neighborhood, directly behind the animal shelter, where there are 13 homes. I know that Farmington, Biltmore, and houses on the grade are also affected. I think most of us would agree that we intentionally bought in a more rural setting for a reason. We are friendly, neighborly, but we respect the quiet spaces between us and our neighbors. More importantly, we wanted the quiet space between us and the city. Imagine that you are in your backyard with other council members to discuss business, quiet time with the Lord, socialize with your friends, or a play date for your children. This is from my backyard. Tell me how that works when you're out there having a devotion or trying to be on your cell phone. It's hard to even talk. This is not a good recording device, so imagine how much louder it really is. Not to mention, that was 30 seconds. And it's often a constant drone of barking dogs that permeates the walls of my house as well. My particular bedroom is in the back of the house, as are most houses in our street in the back of their house, where the dog shelter is. The invasiveness of the barking dogs is not on a schedule. It can be all day for several hours, all night, quiet for a few hours, or start at 2 a.m. and go until 10 a.m. I have a calendar on my nightstand where I circle the nights that the dogs wake us up. I can't tell you how many dates have been circled, but the noise has ruined our neighborhood. It has taken away our backyards. And that isn't the only legitimate complaint, but it's the one that we have asked to be mitigated, and yet nothing that has worked has been done to date. Because of the way the animal shelter was put in our neighborhood, there is a great deal of distrust. We feel pet care campus is a deceptive way of masking dog pound. And because of that, we have fears of what other deceptions could be lurking in our future. We are fearful of potential future expansion. We are fearful of the dog pound incinerator. These and several other concerns we are not taking lightly, but we've been afraid that the City Council has. If the dog pound has been proposed for a 6-acre plot on Maple and Stevens, I think it would be a different story. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah, Mom. There's a lot of people here.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, you.
Were there other people about this issue?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it can be, I mean, but the issues can mix. It's whoever you, oh,
I'm Marie Brown. I live at 1691 Biltmore Drive, but I own a home on Grademere. My daughter lives there. And I am well aware of the noise from the dog pound, or dog shelter. I have a dog, a 120-pound Akita, so I like dogs. But this noise is so invasive. If you want a Sunday church group over, you cannot be in your backyard, particularly if you live on that side facing the dog shelter. Not only that, it reduces the property value because by law, we have to disclose any disturbances that may be in the neighborhood or we can be sued. Along with that, there is a drainage problem. They should have built a retention pond. Instead, it was deliberately funneled to where it runs off either on TTU property that is rented out for picnics and family gatherings, or on the neighbor on the other side. He cannot even use his lower backyard because it gets so wet and soggy he can't go down there. If a child were to fall and seriously injure himself on TTU property, you know he'd sue TTU. But believe me, today the litigious society would include the dog shelter who is responsible for the drainage. Now, I don't know if there's a city ordinance about it, but this dog shelter is on city property. There is a city ordinance, 10-205, regarding barking dogs. And I feel that the shelter should have to comply by their own ordinances of the city. We have had to, if we do something like that, and we want to be respectful, and good neighbors, but we feel we were led astray with Pet Care Campus. We thought being right beside TTU, it had to do with the ag department. No one canvassed the area to see if there would be any problems or any discussion regarding an animal shelter. And we feel that there has to be some mitigation of some of these concerns. We've waited to feel it out, to see just exactly what will happen. And we've talked to the people there, we've talked to the city manager, and they feel no problem because nobody's been around. Well, we wanted to get it together. If you've got any questions, please ask any others that are here representing.
Thank you. Mr. Stingley?
Mr. Mayor, Council, my name is Alan Stingley. I'm here this evening as president of the West Side Business Association and one of the organizers of Wine on the West Side. I'm coming tonight on behalf of the West Side Business Association and the Genesis House and the Tennessee Central Heritage Rail Trail to thank the City of Cookeville and all the departments who work so feverishly to help us put this festival on each year. Thank you individually for your support of Wine on the West Side. And it's the 5th annual this year, and it's become a massive project. The city's been involved with us every year with it, and we really appreciate it, and we wanted to officially thank you for all your help this year, Mr. Davison.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Name is Ron Phillips. I live at 2028 Grademere Drive here in Putnam County. I pastor First United Pentecostal Church down in South Walnut. I'm also a property owner here in the city of Cookeville. When we built our facility down in South Walnut about 6.5 years ago, we were required by the city to do many things that cost us a lot of money in order to make sure that we were not infringing upon our neighbors. And it was very disappointing to me as a homeowner when I discovered that an animal shelter was being built in my backyard. Literally in my backyard, I could almost throw a stone and hit the property where the shelter is. And so I'm joining together with others in our community to appeal to this council to follow the same principles that you ask of others, that you would follow those same principles in your own dealings with us in our neighborhood. We believe that this noise can be mitigated. Yes, it's going to cost some money. It cost our church a lot of money to take care of problems that are things that would have been a problem to our neighbors. And so we're just asking that this council would do unto us as you would have others do unto you. And I believe that if we can work together on this, we can all be made happy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Leslie Scott. I live at 2016 Grademere Drive here in Cookeville. I'm not from here. I don't have any family roots here. I'm a military transplant. My husband and I chose to live where we live because it was a peaceful, quiet neighborhood in 1998. My family has made a lot of sacrifices, including living apart for over 3 years, because we love Cookeville. This is our home. We love our home. In 2006, I put a large addition on my home because I needed a bigger home, but I wanted to stay in my neighborhood. Most of the people that are here representing my neighborhood have been my neighbors for years. We've often enjoyed walking up and down the street, having conversation out in our yards, and that's all over now. My concern is because I'm tired of living there, honestly, because the noise is so bad. The addition that I built off the back of my house has 4 large windows. That the intention was to be able to enjoy the outdoors, to be able to open the windows, listen to the birds sing. That's not an option anymore. Even sitting inside with the windows closed, unless you turn on a TV or a stereo, you have no peace. So my dilemma is this: selling my house is not an option right now, because disclosure of a neighborhood nuisance or disturbance is required. I'm a licensed real estate professional. I'm a broker. I've been licensed since 2006. And I help folks fill out those disclosures every time I list a property, so I know it's required. So we cannot lie to sell our homes, and we wouldn't want to, and we're stuck. So we're asking you to please help restore the peacefulness of our neighborhood. And also consider, if it were your neighborhood and if it were your investment in your home, how would you feel and what would you do? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, my name's Tom Slager. I live at 2034 Grademere Drive. One thing I want to talk about today was, since the opening of the animal shelter in January of this year, we've had a hard time getting answers to questions of who takes ownership in the facility, who is responsible for the facility, and who do we voice our concerns to. We've got the runaround a lot of times. I've even had county commissioners just tell me to simply call the sheriff's department. They were going to do nothing about it. Problem is, the sheriff's department, when we call them, they say it's not their problem. It's not in their control. We're just having a hard time with this noise. It's a constant daily problem. I even went as far as to speak to Darrell Webb, who's the director of the animal shelter. Tried to speak to him about the problem. We thought we had some things fixed. county commissioners had worked on it. They were going to start keeping the dogs put up at night after the animal shelters closes at 6 o'clock. That's not happening. The problem is an all-day, throughout the day problem. It can be fixed. This problem can be fixed and minimized. The answer is simple, and it won't cost the city council a dime. Keep the dogs inside. I mean, this is not a doggy daycare. It's an animal shelter. We keep the dogs inside most of the time. We do not hear the noise as bad. It minimizes the noise. And that's my suggestion. Keep the dogs inside and build a sound barrier wall. And thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, so that will close that portion of the meeting. We hear your concerns. I know you want to just make one general comment over the whole thing, and then we'll.
I am Mike Davidson, city manager for Cookeville, and Mr. Slager, I have never talked with you. The Animal Control Board does oversee the operations of the shelter. That Animal Control Board is jointly funded by the city and the county. But I hear your concerns, and I'm sensitive to those, and we're looking, my staff is looking, trying to find solutions for the noise. We are looking and trying to determine what would be the best solution to try to minimize the impact of those dogs barking. Because I've heard the concerns. Leslie and Wayne Dulworth, we had an Animal Control Board meeting back in the spring. I've talked with them, so we are looking at options, trying to determine what can be done to help the situation.
I can make a brief comment.
Thank you.
Can I talk one time, bring you through?
I'll let one more. But we are closed for comment. But go ahead real quick, and that will be it. And then we will close the meeting down after that. Yes, sir.
My name's Wayne Dulworth. I live at 2035 Grademere. Like Mike said right there, I did go to the meeting. Leslie and I did, and Mike had at that time suggested that Tony and I and everybody, we had looked at putting up a Leland cypress, and that's going to take. That sounds good and everything, but the longer you stay there, and the length of time it would take for the Leland cypress to grow up to help with the sound, I just don't think that's a viable thing. My wife and I pulled up on the computer. There is animal shelter sound barriers for animal shelters. I think somebody needs to look that up, and I think we need to. And we're just asking. We're just asking if it was you all, would that what you want? I mean, it's not. We just need some help. It's a thing where I've been retired now with the city. I work here 42.9 years. I finally get to go to the house, and I go out on my porch of a morning to sit on what I consider the peacefulest place I can sit out there and drink my coffee. That day's gone. At 7:30 when I go out there, they're turning them dogs out, and I'm telling you, it's the awfulest noise it ever was. And it's every day. It's every day. So just look at it as we need some help.
Okay.
We need some help.
Well, to his point, Mr. Davidson's point, I can assure you that it's not being ignored. It's being talked about. It was talked about Monday at work session. They were Googling things just exactly like you're talking about. So it is being looked at to try to figure out something to help the neighborhood.
Well, we appreciate it.
Yes,
and anything you can do, that's what
Absolutely.
we need. We need some help on it. And Mike, I appreciate what you've done and everything. So
we will work toward a solution for the neighborhood. Okay, we will. Is that good?
Very briefly, yeah, and I would say we've got a state-of-the-art animal shelter. We're all proud of it. We're proud of that. But clearly, and I've count myself among that number, but clearly there has been damage to the neighborhood. We've heard noise, drainage, property value, and all those are legitimate concerns. And just speaking as one councilman, Mike, as much as we can fast-track this solution, I can support it because we do own it. The county participates in the operational costs, but we own it. It's ours. So it's our job to fix it, and I think we need to fix it by whatever means as soon as we possibly can. And I appreciate, Mike, your efforts in carrying that forward as rapidly as possible.
All right, good deal. Real quick, just to make everyone aware, again, the Coca-Cola event tomorrow, 11 to 2 on West Side. Tomorrow night, CrossFit Rich Froning movie from 7 to 10 in Dogwood Park. It's free and open to the public. Hope everyone has a safe Labor Day. Also, Fall Fun Fest and the 26th Annual Cookeville Cook-Off is next weekend on Friday and Saturday. So we have a lot of things going on in our town, and we are cognizant of we appreciate our citizens bringing things to our attention. We'll make sure that we get them handled, and we will be adjourned.